Reality exists at different levels, and each of them gives you different but valuable perspectives. It's important to keep all of them in mind as you synthesize and make decisions, and to know how to navigate between them. Dalio principles we'll be continuing with at that one. Hope you all had a great day yesterday. I'm feeling a lot better, which is interesting considering that yesterday I had the chance to go out and do some sailing in the rain and wind and salt water in my face. But maybe that's just good for your health. So got a little bit of work done in the morning and then had the opportunity and was very lucky to be able to do that. Hope you all had a great day and got some really good things done to be able to get closer to your goals. I know I certainly did, and I need to send some updates a little bit later on around that. Yesterday, we were reading about, let's have a look here, 5.3, synthesize the situation through time, and that allows us to be able to look at information from a more critical viewpoint. And today we're going to be talking about 5.4, navigate levels effectively. So let's see what Ray Dalio means by that. Let's get into it. Hopefully you get motivated and enjoy the reading today. I am looking forward to reading and sharing my thoughts, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you later, and I'll share how you can watch the replays and get in touch. But first, let's do some reading. Hello to everybody who is on Figo. We have Luffy and Mari and a couple of other people who have joined. One Labs, good to see you, and thank you for joining. Luz and David as well as ID 154922638. But let's get into the reading. Let's get the day started on the right foot. And Marlon on the Zoom as well, by the way. So always good to see you as well. Okay, navigate levels effectively. Reality exists at different levels, and each of them gives you different but valuable perspectives. It's important to keep all of them in mind as you synthesize and make decisions, and to know how to navigate between them. Let's say you're looking at your hometown on Google Maps. Zoom in close enough to see the buildings, and you won't be able to see the region surrounding your town, which can tell you important things. Maybe your town sits next to a body of water. Zoom in too close, and you won't be able to tell if the shoreline is along a river, a lake, or an ocean. You need to know which level is appropriate to your decision. I'm sure when you're looking for something, you will look on Google Maps and then you zoom in and then you can't really see where it is with regards to that city, and then you zoom out again and then hope that the pin stays there so you can still see, and then you zoom back in again to see the details, and then you zoom back out. This is exactly what I think Ray Dalio is talking about. I'm sure most of you know exactly because I think we all do it when we are using our Google Maps. We are constantly seeing things at different levels and navigating between them, whether we know it or not, whether we do it well or not, and whether our objects are physical things, ideas, or goals. For example, you can navigate levels to move from your values to what you do to realize them on a day-to-day basis. This is what that looks like in outline. 1. High-level big picture. I want meaningful work that's full of learning. 1.1. Subordinate concept. I want to be a doctor. Subpoint. I need to go to medical school. Subpoint. I need to get good grades in the sciences. Subpoint. I need to stay home tonight and study. So each decision is based on the bigger goal, and you chunk it down or chunk it up based on which viewpoint you're looking at to start off with, in order to be able to then make the right decision. So, for example, I need to study for my exam tomorrow. I'm not going to go out. But it's based on the higher level big picture, which is I want to do something fulfilling. Or, as we've spoken about before, I was talking about my dream to have students go overseas for an exchange program as part of a compulsory part of the education system. That is my bigger picture. So every decision that I make needs to align with that bigger picture goal. And in order to do that, I set up businesses. I have people along the way that I want to assist with theirs that align so that I can achieve my goals, they can achieve their goals, so that everybody leaves behind a legacy. To observe how well you do this in your own life, pay attention to your conversations. We tend to move between levels when we talk. A, Use the terms above the line and below the line to establish which level a conversation is on. An above the line conversation addresses the main points, and a below the line conversation focuses on the subpoints. When a line of reasoning is jumbled and confusing, it's often because the speaker has gotten caught up in below the line details without connecting them back to the major points. An above the line discourse should progress in an orderly and accurate way to its conclusion, only going below the line when it's necessary to illustrate something about one of the major points. So really staying on track with the conversation to make sure that you get to what you need to do. There was once a book that I read, and it talked about something that the people in the room wanted to figure out together. And they used a scientific method called the givens. So given that X, we can conclude Y. Given Y, we can conclude Z. Given Z, we can conclude. And so you use the givens in order to be able to get through the conversation. So you have a structure that you go through in order to be able to come up with the right answer. Otherwise, it becomes a question of looking at something and then getting off track and talking about something else, or maybe not following a structure that's going to get you to the result. It might get you there eventually, but it will take a lot longer. Very quickly, I just noticed a couple of hearts on the Bigo. Jay and Alan, thank you so much for the hearts. And Julius Caesar Claventos has just joined us as well. Ali and Tarkan might also still be there. David, Wong, and Esho. So thank you to everybody that's been joining. Let's continue. Part B. Remember that decisions need to be made at the appropriate level, but they should also be consistent across levels. For instance, and we're getting a lot of diagrams here. So we are getting good examples and bad examples of a conversation and how to go from one step to the next. Let's see if I can get this so that it will actually show the bottom. There we go. So it just has different types of conversations and how they could flow. Excuse me. One with synthesis and one without. So we have bigger sequence, and the synthesis we go from A to G, and in no synthesis we go all over the place. Logical sequence that explores specifics, we're going from A to G, but we are diving deeper into certain elements. And note synthesis when we go from one to the next and then go all the way and just tell stories about it. Let me see. It looks like we missed something. For instance, if you want to have a healthy life, you should have 12 sausage. Shouldn't have 12 sausage links and a beer every day for breakfast. Sausage links. For breakfast every day. In other words, you need to constantly connect and reconcile the data you're gathering at different levels in order to draw a complete picture of what's going on. Like synthesizing in general, some people are naturally better at this than others, but anyone can learn to do this to one degree or another. To do well, it's necessary to 1. Remember that multiple levels exist for all subjects. 2. Be aware on what level you're examining a given subject. 3. Consciously navigate levels rather than see subjects as undifferentiated piles of facts that can be borrowed randomly. And 4. Diagram the flow of your thought process using the outline templates shown on the previous page. And so this is these ones. So the ones on the left and on the right for Bigo are the good ones. And what it shows is that the conversation just progresses through all the steps needed to get to the answer. Sometimes you might go a little bit deeper, but you go back to the original point to move on to the next step in the process. Bad is when it goes all over the place, or when it just deviates off and goes into the stories and doesn't come back to the actual process of finding a solution. Very, very interesting. When you do all this with radical open-mindedness, you will become more aware not just of what you're seeing, but what you're not seeing and what others perhaps are. It's a little like when jazz musicians jam. Knowing what level you're on allows everyone to play in the same key. When you know your own way of seeing and are open to others' ways too, you can create good conceptual jazz together rather than just screech at each other. Now, let's go up a level and examine deciding. Very quickly on this. So we have processes for coming up with solutions to things. So, for example, let's say that you are into the crossword or the Sudoku. Now, you could not learn anything about Sudoku or crosswords and just do a crossword, and you will probably get nowhere because you're not sure of how it's done. But if you get somebody to teach you how it is done, there are actually processes for going through a crossword and processes for going through Sudoku. So there might be an area where there are more numbers available to you, and you can use that as your basis to start building out. If you know the process, Sudoku is really, really simple. If you know the process, crosswords are very, very simple. But if you don't understand the process, then of course you're going to have these side conversations and you're never going to follow the process. If you know the process, then there is obviously two different kinds of things that can happen. You can follow the process, or you can get sidetracked and stop following the process, or believe that you are better than the process and follow a new process that you create yourself, which doesn't work and doesn't get you to the answers. So in everything that we do, this is one of the reasons why we want to model successful people, because successful people have certain processes that they've created. One perfect example of this is Richard Branson. Richard Branson is famous for having processes for setting up a business and having it run by somebody else very, very quickly, similar to Jim's Mowing here in Australia. This guy is very good at setting up franchises. So he started out with a lawn mowing business, which he quickly franchised and got other people to join. And it obviously became more successful because of the name associated with it. And then from there, now he has a company that franchises all sorts of different things. So you've got Jim's antennas, Jim's, what else does he have? All sorts of different things. I can't think of them all right now. I think he's got Jim's pool cleaning, Jim's this, Jim's that. But what he has is not the ability to be good at pool cleaning or installing antennas or all of those different kinds of things. Testing and tagging they do as well. What he is good at is setting up the process of starting a business so it can be franchised. So when a new business is set up, he uses those processes to set the business up so that it runs well very, very quickly and can be given to somebody else and they can follow that process. They add the expertise of what it is that they are doing. So the person who is running that first franchise, they are the expert on testing and tagging. They are the expert on pool cleaning. They are the expert on whatever it is, the antenna installation. He just gives them a system so that they can run a business around their expertise. And of course, it's going to be tweaked along the way. But the idea being that you follow that process. And if that process runs into something that the expertise needs to add into that process, then you go deeper in that, but then you go back to the process. So this is what we want to do with our decision making. And when you can do this, then things go very, very smoothly and much quicker than when you look to invent the wheel by yourself. We'll read Decide Well, and then we will continue with 5.5 tomorrow. Let's continue. Decide well. Using decision-making logic to produce the best long-term outcomes has become its own science, one that employs probabilities and statistics, game theory, and other tools. While many of these tools are helpful, the fundamentals of effective decision-making are relatively simple and timeless. In fact, they are genetically encoded in our brains to varying degrees. Watch animals in the wild, and you'll see that they instinctively make expected value calculations to optimize the energy they expend to find food. Those that did this well prospered and passed on their genes through the process of natural selection. Those that did it poorly perished. While most humans do this, who do this badly don't perish, they will certainly be penalized by the process of economic selection. As previously explained, there are two broad approaches to decision making: evidence-based, evidence and logic-based, which comes from the higher level brain, and subconscious emotional based, which comes from the lower level animal brain. So I've always found this really fascinating. So as humans, we have certain advantages. So we do things very, very much similar to animals, but we don't have the same kind of consequences. Some of us who would otherwise not make it, who would not be able to find partners, or who would not be able to create sufficient economic means to be able to survive. Those of us who would not be able to hunt don't really have any issues in this world, and we're able to do most of the things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do, and which would have caused us to die. But the rules still apply. If we decide that we want to have a partner, or we want to make money, or we want to do anything, but we don't follow the rules because we have our ideology and we don't want to do it the way that nature intended, then we are not going to get ahead and we're not going to make it. If we decide we want to do business and we don't follow business principles, we don't use the marketing techniques, we don't understand how somebody else's brain works and use that to our advantage, then somebody else who might have an inferior product will do a better job of being able to sell that product because they actually follow the rules with regards to the nature of the brain, regardless of whether you agree with it or not. And this is the interesting thing. Very often, we have the luxury as humans of being able to think a little bit more deeply, and we can have an ideology, but our ideology doesn't mean that it will change the way nature works. Nature continues to work in the way that it's always worked, and we can fight against that and get mediocre results, or we can work with it and get much better results. So that's something to keep in mind when we are doing anything. If you want to start a relationship, the way to get somebody interested in you, you have to follow the rules. There are certain rules, and there are certain people who disagree with how it works. But if you want to get the result, you have to go through the steps. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about synthesizing, going through the steps and following the process. And very often that process is something that used to be innate inside of us. But because of all sorts of different things that happen to us as humans and our ability to think and add layers on top of just our instinct, we are able to bypass that and do things in a different way, which doesn't get us the result. And sometimes we even think that it's the wrong way of doing things, even though it's the only way of getting that result. Very interesting thing that is. Okay, we're going to leave it at that for today. Hope you enjoyed the reading. Hope you got something out of it that you're going to be able to implement today, or something that makes you think. And maybe it might not hit today, it will hit at some stage. I'm looking forward to reading for you again tomorrow and giving you my thoughts and commentary on this amazing book, Principles by Ray Dalio. If you enjoyed that, and if you'd like to watch the replays and start from the beginning, or watch the other books that I've read and give them my commentary on, you can find them at YouTube on the channel The Passive Cash Flow Club. And I'd love to hear your comments, and make sure that you go and enjoy that one. And make sure that you subscribe. We are also answering your questions. Many of you have been sending through your questions, so make sure you send through your questions as well. If you subscribe, you'll know when those questions are answered. And whether it's your question or not, it is always good, because you never know when a question that somebody asks is going to benefit you. So make sure you subscribe. And if you did ask a question, if you're subscribed, then you'll know when your question has been uploaded, and you'll have the answer to your question. So keep those questions coming. Really appreciate them. So if you have a question, if you'd like to know more about the simulations, the masterminds, the game nights, the networking, and other things that we run, then you can get in touch on Instagram, business_team_6_official. Would love to hear from you, get to know more of you. Moed, Michelle Lee, Dollar, Radov, and a couple of other people who have been joining. Great to have you all. Young God just joined, and ID 840529483 joined as well. So I'd love to get to know more of you, and be in touch and find out more about what makes you tick and what you're interested in and where you're at with your investing, all of those different kinds of things. And if you have any questions about the book or anything that you're not sure of, just send them through, and I would love to stay in touch with you. So thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. And you can also send your questions, obviously, to that Instagram, and we'll send you information if you're interested in any of our events. If you would like to ask a question, feel free. And if you'd like to watch the replays, please do join us at the Passive Cash Flow Club. So I'm going to leave it at that. I have to start heading off and getting ready. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed the reading as much as I did. I always have so much fun doing this every morning. I'm looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow for another reading. In the meantime, remember to make the switch to unlock your rich. If you keep doing the same things in the same way, you're going to get the same results. There is a more effective and a faster way to doing everything. So find those processes, find those ways of doing things, and you will be able to get amazing results. Have a great day. I'll see you all tomorrow, and thank you so much for joining. And then I'm going to quickly jump over to the Bigo and say hello to everybody over there.